Welcome to the official car of if it was rear-wheel drive, it would be pretty dang cool. Today we are diving into the Honda Prelude. You guessed it, specifically the 5th generation. Now this is the car that if Honda had just gone the extra mile and made it rear-wheel drive, would probably be sitting next to the S2000 on Bring a Trailer in the $30,000 range. Well, instead it's been largely forgotten by the masses except for a small and dedicated community of enthusiasts that know just how special this car really is. So why are we talking about a front-wheel drive coupe from the 90s? Well, because the 5th gen Prelude is an absolute gem that's flown under the radar for too long. It's a car that's got style, a bit of muscle, and a whole lot of potential, if you know what to do with it. Now let's rewind all the way back to November of 1996. Honda launches the 5th gen Prelude, a 4-seater, front-wheel drive coupe that was intended to be more than just another Civic with a trunk. Under the hood, Honda had packed in the H22A, a 2.2-liter, 4-cylinder engine pushing out a healthy 195 horsepower. And if you were lucky enough to be driving this thing back in the 90s, you'd be rowing the gears through a 5-speed manual transmission, unless you were stuck with the 4-speed automatic. Tragic. But for the purpose of this video, we'll just pretend the automatic doesn't exist. You probably will too, shopping for one of these. Now 195 horsepower might not sound like a lot by today's standards, where 1000 horsepower is basically the minimum, but in the late 90s it was pretty solid for an NA 4-cylinder. And keep in mind, the Prelude was no featherweight. It did tip the scales at around 3,000 pounds, which made it a bit of a beefy boy in the Honda lineup. But this wasn't just another lightweight, corner-happy Civic. Honda was working on something here. They were cooking. They were aiming for something more refined, almost like a fine wine, like a Grand Tourer for the everyday enthusiast. Well, as usual, Japan, they got the cooler stuff. Over there they had the Type S Prelude, which cranked out around 220 horsepower, weighed a little bit less, and came with a sportier suspension option and a manual transmission as standard, of course. Now, it wasn't a night and day difference here from what we got here in the States, but it was definitely an improvement and welcomed, and why didn't we get it here? The Type S was like the Prelude's cooler, slightly more athletic cousin that everyone wanted to hang out with. So let's talk about handling. Well, one of the quirks of the 5th gen Prelude was its weight distribution. We're talking about a little bit over 60-40 front to rear, with 60% being over the front wheels and 40% over the rear. In most cases, that's a recipe for understeer city, and is common on front-wheel drive cars. But Honda, being the clever folks that they are, threw in a little something called Active Torque Transfer System, or ATTS for short. Well, ATTS is basically a love child between a limited slip differential and torque vectoring. It's a system that senses when you're cornering and sends more power to the outside front wheel to help pull you through the turn. This helps combat the inherent understeer that comes with a front-heavy, front-wheel drive platform. Well, it's not magic, but it does make the Prelude a lot more fun to drive and a lot more predictable when cornering. The Prelude, given its weight, is a car that rewards smooth inputs and really shines on twisty back roads where you can let that ATTS system do its thing. So in my opinion, Honda made one of the best looking cars they've ever made with the 5th gen Prelude. It's never going to be as fast as a gutted EG or as pure a driving experience as an S2000 or as exotic as an NSX, but this car has a super unique look that's never been replicated. It's got that classic 90s Honda vibe, but with just a little bit more sophistication, like putting a top hat on an EK hatch. The long hood, the low roofline, and those sharp angular lines all come together to create a car that looks as good today as it did when it first rolled off the assembly line. And here's the thing, when you lower a Prelude just right, it looks killer. Whether you go for a subtle drop, an inch, 2, 3, or slam it to the ground, this car can pull off just about any stance you want to throw at it. Add some quality wheels on here. My vote is NKs for something kind of period correct. You can also do TEs, work wheels, SSR, WEDs, you can get them all at the link down below in the description. And you've got a car that'll turn heads at any meet. Paint the car, it's old. Maybe throw out a Mugen lip kit, JDM rear bumper, JDM front bumper. You got all the JDM parts in the world. It's a Honda, and you got yourself a showstopper. Now let's get into the real juicy mods. Well, the Prelude, specifically the H22, doesn't have the same aftermarket support as the B Series, K Series, etc., but don't let that fool you. With the right mods, this car can be an absolute blast. So if you're looking to build a unique, potent front-wheel drive monster, here's how you can do it. Now first things first, let's help that H22A breathe a little bit better. It's choked up from the factory. Cold air intake, AEM, or InGen are great options. They'll give you a little bump in power, but that really addictive induction noise as well. Now you're going to want an exhaust system, DC Sports or Skunk 2, for the headers and the catback. Bear in mind, I'm not telling you to delete your cats. EPA, if you're watching this, keep your cats on the car. You're going to free up a little bit extra horsepower by doing this, and you're also going to give your Prelude a voice that'll make people sit up and take notice. Now if you're really serious about making some jam after doing just a couple bolt-ons, it's time to talk forced induction. The H22A is a pretty strong engine, and the stock bottom end limit is pretty healthy. You're going to want to go with the turbo kit on this. Something like Turbonetics or Full Race both offer bolt-on kits, which again, you can get down in the description below, which can get you around 300 to 400 horsepower on an unopened engine with the right supporting mods. You're obviously going to need injectors, you're going to need an intercooler, you're going to need a tune, Hall Technique's a great ECU, all the standard turbo stuff. I don't have to tell you about this. Every time you turbo a car, you need a whole bunch of stuff. Probably make a video on how to turbo your car at some point in time, but there you go. You do all that stuff, you get a Prelude that can surprise just about anything on the road. You want to get Hellcats in your 90s Honda? This is the way. So power is nothing without control. The stock suspension's fine, but it's also from the 90s. It's not going to cut it if you're serious about performance. You're going to want a set of coilovers for this thing. TN makes a great option. BC makes a great option. Silvers makes a great option. K-Sport makes a great option. There's a ton of options at threepiece.us. They're going to help you dial in your stance and drastically improve your handling. You're going to need some arms, adjustable camber, adjustable toe, all that jazz, sway bars, and a front strut tower brace, and your Prelude is going to handle like it's on rails. No wheels and tires. Well, we're a wheel and tire company, so obviously I'm going to tell you about all that stuff. You're going to need some good ones to get the power to the ground. 17-inch NK RPF ones are the gold standard here, and you're going to want to wrap them up in sticky tires like the Yokohama Advan 8008s, Bridgestone Potenza RE71Rs, anything like that are a great choice. There's lots of other wheel options, but we're always going to pitch RPF ones because they're the best bang for the buck. Now to stop your Honda, a big brake kit is a great option. You can use a factory accurate TLS kit, or you can use something like Willwood or Brembo. If you don't want to spend big brake kit money, you can use like some Hawk or EBC rotors or pads, and that's going to give you a little bit more stopping power without breaking the bank. Now, the interior for Prelude is absolutely classic Honda, but there's always room for a little bit of improvement there. Aftermarket seats from Recaro, or just throw some Integra Type R Recaros in there. OEM JDM seats are a great option for you as well. They're going to keep you planted during spirited driving. A quick release steering wheel, but not if you're in California. It's a felony now. A Nardi or a Momo are going to give you a little bit of race car flair in there. You can upgrade your gauges with a digital dash, specifically if you run that Hall Tech, or you can just keep the stock gauges, whatever you're into. And you're going to want to add some of the modern conveniences, get a radio with CarPlay, all that stuff. Now, in my opinion, one of the coolest things about the Prelude is the community. It's not as big as the Civic or Integra crowds, but that's maybe a good thing. The Prelude community is tight-knit, passionate about the cars that they like, and they're willing to help. There's tons of forums out there, and then obviously the Facebook groups. RIP forums, you are great, we miss you. Facebook groups, you suck in comparison. There's guides on basically everything you want to do, whether it's a mild street build to an all-out track monster. People go step by step into doing everything you could possibly think of doing to a Prelude because guess what? It's a 90s Honda. It's already been done. So, in my opinion here, the Prelude community is one of those really rare groups where everyone seems to just genuinely appreciate the car and the community and what it represents. So what's the takeaway here? Should you buy a Honda Prelude, especially the 5th gen? Well, yeah, it's a car that deserves more recognition than it gets. Sure, it's front-wheel drive, which kind of sucks, and yeah, it's not as raw or as fast or as connected as some of its Honda siblings, but that's not the point. The Prelude is about balance. It's about blending comfort with performance and style. It's about doing things a little differently. And so if you want to be just a little different, the Prelude might be the car for you. It's a car that can be a daily driver during the week and a backroad warrior on the weekends. It's a car that, with the right mods, can surprise a lot of people, both in terms of performance and style. And perhaps, most importantly, it's a car with a dedicated community that's keeping the spirit of the Prelude alive and well. So next time you see a Prelude, don't dismiss it as just another forgotten 90s coupe. Take a closer look. You might just find yourself appreciating one of Honda's most underrated creations ever. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, please drop a comment down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button thingy, add your Prelude to our vehicle gallery, which is linked down below, buy some wheels from our website, and I'll see you in the next one.